Who will take care of you when you can no longer take care of yourself? The first answer that comes to mind is almost always the same. My children, my partner, my family. It's an answer that sounds nice, that brings a certain relief. But what if that answer is wrong? What if it's just a hope and not a plan? For a long time, this question was treated as a problem of affection, morality, or luck. We decided to analyze it in a different way, as a data problem, a pattern to be deciphered. For this task, we used the capabilities of the Axiom neural network artificial intelligence. We fed the system with decades of records on family dynamics, social changes, and the biological effects of aging across different cultures. We wanted it to show us the cold math behind what happens when life starts to demand more from us. The first conclusion the system presented was a frightening concept, something it identified as invisible abandonment. Unlike a loud bang or a declared act of malice, it arrives silently, disguised as "I don't have time" or "I'll call you later" that never happens. It's an abandonment made of visits that become increasingly rare, until one day they simply disappear from the calendar. It's the feeling of being surrounded by people who say they love you, but who, in practice, are not there. This script is not meant to make you feel bad, it's meant to wake you up. This becomes clear when we look at the life of Anthony, a 73-year-old man. Anthony was an engineer his whole life. He built bridges, literally. He raised 3 children, paid mortgages, college tuitions, weddings. For decades, he was the pillar of his family. The one who was always there, who never failed, who solved everyone's problems without ever asking for anything in return. Anthony told us something that is hard to forget. He said the hardest day of his life wasn't when his father died, nor when he was fired at 58. It wasn't even when his wife fell ill. The hardest day was a random Tuesday, 2 years ago. It was the day he realized that it had been 11 days since any of his 3 children had called him. 11 days. And there was no fight. No resentment. They were just busy. They had their jobs, their own children, their own problems. And their father, the man who had given everything for them, had subtly ceased to be a priority and had become a task on a to-do list. He didn't say anything to them. He didn't want to bother them, didn't want to seem needy. So he waited. And when one of his sons finally called, Anthony pretended everything was fine, that he hadn't been counting the days. But he had, one by one. This is invisible abandonment. It's not being left in a nursing home and forgotten. That's rare. That's extreme. The real abandonment is much more subtle. It's the space that grows between phone calls. It's the "I can't this weekend" that repeats so many times it becomes the rule. It's realizing you've gone from being the center of their universe to an obligation in their calendar. And the worst part is that you can't complain, because technically no one did anything wrong. It's a scenario that repeats in thousands of homes, perhaps even in your parents' house, or in yours in the future. This doesn't happen because people are bad. It happens because modern life was designed for it to happen. For thousands of years, humans lived in gigantic family structures. 3, 4 generations under the same roof. Grandparents looked after grandchildren, and children looked after their elderly parents. It wasn't a choice. It was the system. It was survival. There was a natural reciprocity, a cycle. You take care of me now because I took care of you before, and your children will take care of you later. But in just 2 or 3 generations, that system has crumbled. Families scattered, homes became smaller, and slowly, caring for parents went from being a certainty to being a problem, a burden to be managed. It doesn't mean it was better before, but there was something that is missing today: certainty. You knew someone would be there. Today, you have to have hope. And hope is a terrible plan for old age. This hope becomes a terrible plan when we look at the numbers. In Brazil, more than 5 million people over 60 live alone, almost 1 in 6, and that number is constantly growing. In Japan, the situation is so critical they have a word for it, kodokushi, which means lonely death. It refers to people who die alone in their homes and are only found weeks or months later. Thousands of cases every year, in one of the most developed countries in the world. We always think this won't happen to us, that our family is different, that our children truly love us. And they probably do love you, but love is not enough. Love doesn't guarantee presence, it doesn't pay for caregivers' bills, It doesn't lift you off the floor when you fall in the middle of the night. You need to understand something fundamental. And this might hurt, but it's liberating. Nobody owes you anything. Your children don't owe you anything. Your partner doesn't owe you anything. No matter how much you sacrificed, no matter how much you gave, they do not have a debt to you. The sooner you accept this, the sooner you can build a life that doesn't depend on others paying a bill they never signed. There is a mental trap that almost all of us fall into. We asked Axiom to analyze communication patterns in families where resentment arose in old age, and the system identified a recurring pattern, a logical flaw it called the love contract trap. The logic works like this. I give you love, time, money, and sacrifice. At some point in the future, you will return this to me in the form of care. We don't say this out loud or even think about it consciously, but this unsigned contract is there, operating in the back of our minds. And when the time comes to collect and the other person doesn't pay, we feel betrayed. But think about it. Did you ever tell your children that you would raise them, pay for their education, and in return, they must take care of you when you got old? No. The contract only exists in your head. Your children didn't ask to be born. What you did for them, you did because you wanted to, because it was your responsibility, and because you loved them. But turning that love into a future debt is unfair to them, and it's dangerous for you. We know the story of a woman, Carmen, who understood this too late. Carmen dedicated her entire life to her two daughters. She gave up promotions at work to spend more time at home. She paid for their education, their first cars, the down payments on their apartments. She was there for every crisis, every breakup, every birthday. She was the perfect mother, the one who was always there. When Carmen turned 70, she began to have mobility problems. Nothing serious, but she needed help with a few things. She called her daughters. Her daughters loved her, they really did. They were not bad people, but one lived 400 kilometers away and had 3 small children. The other worked 60 hours a week in a high-pressure job. Both said the same thing. Mom, we love you, but we can't right now. Carmen felt betrayed. After everything she had given, her daughters weren't there. For months she was resentful, crying alone at home, feeling used, discarded, as if she had been just a tool to raise them, and now that she was no longer useful, she had been thrown away. The moment Carmen began to get better was when she stopped expecting her daughters to pay a debt that never existed, when she understood that the love she gave was a gift, not a loan, that her daughters had the right to live their own lives without the burden of a mother who expected to be rewarded, and that she, Carmen, had the responsibility to build an old age that didn't depend on anyone. It wasn't easy. She had to let go of years of expectations. She had to face the reality that she was alone and that it wasn't anyone's fault. But when she did, something changed. The anger went away. She started looking for solutions instead of culprits. And ironically, her relationship with her daughters improved. Because there was no more debt, no more tension. There was only love, a clean love with no invoices. But the reality of loneliness is not just sad. It kills, literally. And when we say it kills, it's not a metaphor, it's pure biology. In 2010, a massive study analyzed data from over 300,000 people. The conclusion was alarming. Having few social relationships is as dangerous to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It is more dangerous than being obese and as harmful as being an alcoholic. Loneliness is a slow-acting poison that destroys the body from the inside out. But why? Why can a feeling have such a devastating physical effect? The answer lies in our evolution. For millions of years, a human being alone in nature was a dead human being. We didn't have claws, fangs, or speed. Our only weapon was the group, the tribe. Together we could hunt, defend ourselves, and survive. Alone we were easy prey. That's why our brain developed a primitive and extremely effective alarm system, the fear of exclusion. To your brain, the pain of social rejection is processed in the same areas as physical pain. When you feel lonely or excluded, your brain doesn't distinguish it from getting punched or breaking a bone. It interprets isolation as a mortal threat to your survival. And how does the body react to a mortal threat? It goes into emergency mode. It releases cortisol, the famous stress hormone. Cortisol is useful if you need to escape from a predator. It speeds up your heart, tenses your muscles, and prepares you to fight or run. The problem is that in the modern world, the predator never shows up. The threat isn't a lion that goes away after a few minutes. The threat is the silence, the empty house, the phone that doesn't ring. It's a constant threat. And because of that, cortisol keeps flowing. Day after day, month after month, year after year, a body flooded with chronic cortisol begins to self-destruct. Blood pressure rises. The immune system, which should protect you from diseases, becomes suppressed. Digestion is altered, sleep is disrupted, and the damage to the brain is especially cruel. Cortisol kills neurons in an area called the hippocampus, the structure responsible for memory and learning. Have you ever wondered why older, lonely people seem to deteriorate faster, lose their memory, become more anxious? It's not just age, it's the poison of loneliness doing its silent work. But the investigation goes deeper. To understand the neural architecture of loneliness, we asked the artificial intelligence to analyze 40,000 magnetic resonance imaging scans, looking for a pattern in the brains of people who felt chronically lonely, and it found something fascinating. There was a notable difference in a specific brain network, the one that activates when we're not doing anything, when we daydream, think about the past, or imagine the future. In lonely brains, this network was hyper-connected. It was as if the brain, deprived of real connections with the outside world, turned inward, creating a more intense internal universe to compensate. But this is not a good thing. This internal hyperactivity is linked to repetitive thoughts, rumination, and depression. The lonely brain is a brain that devours itself. If you analyze your last week, how many real conversations did you have? Not text messages, not work emails, not likes on social media. Real conversations, face-to-face, or at least voice-to-voice. Conversations where someone asked her, "How are you?" and actually wanted to hear the answer. If the answer is few or none, ironically, you're not alone in this. We live in the most connected era in history, and at the same time, the loneliest. We have hundreds of online friends and no one to call in the middle of the night. And it only gets worse with age. When you're young, life forces you to socialize, school, college, work. But when you get older, these structures disappear. You retire, friends get sick, children have their own lives. And suddenly you find yourself with infinite hours and no one to fill them with. But the damage goes even deeper than stress chemistry or brain structure. It hits the clock that counts the time of your life, inside every single one of your cells. The damage goes even deeper, hitting the clock that counts the time of your life, inside every single one of your cells. To understand this, imagine your chromosomes are like shoelaces. At the tips of each shoelace, there's a small plastic piece that keeps it from fraying. Your chromosomes have something similar. They are protective caps called telomeres. Every time a cell in your body divides, these telomeres get a little shorter. It's a natural process. When they become too short, the cell can no longer divide properly. It ages, stops working, and dies. Telomeres are literally your body's biological clock. The longer they are, the younger you are at a cellular level. The shorter they are, the older you are. And here comes the crucial part. The speed at which your telomeres shorten is not fixed. It is not determined solely by your genetics. It is directly influenced by how you live. Groundbreaking studies, led by researchers who won the Nobel Prize for this work, have shown that chronic stress, isolation, and lack of social support dramatically accelerate the shortening of telomeres. To verify this connection, we asked Axiom to analyze thousands of genetic samples, cross-referenced with the life histories of the participants. The pattern was unmistakable. People who reported high levels of loneliness had significantly shorter telomeres than those with strong social connections. In other words, loneliness makes you age faster. You can eat well, exercise, not smoke. But if you are chronically lonely, your cells are aging at an accelerated rate anyway. Now let's talk about something you see every day, but perhaps have never fully understood: the mental rigidity of older people. That tendency to cling to the same opinions, to reject what is new, to repeat the same stories, the feeling that they've stopped learning. The easy explanation is to say, it's an age thing. But that's not true. Age doesn't make you stubborn. What makes you stubborn is a brain that has stopped adapting. And there is a neurological reason for this. Your brain has an ability called cognitive flexibility. It's what allows you to switch from one task to another adapt to new situations, and see things from other perspectives. This function mainly depends on the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain right behind your forehead. It's what makes us human, and it's also one of the first areas to deteriorate with age. But the key point is that this decline is not the same for everyone. People who maintain active social connections, who talk, who are challenged by new ideas, maintain their cognitive flexibility for much longer. The brain is like a muscle. If you don't use it, it atrophies. And one of the best ways to exercise it is by interacting with other people. Remember Anthony, the engineer we talked about at the beginning? The man who built bridges and raised 3 children. When we met him, he had been living alone for 2 years, since his wife passed away. And he confessed something that embarrassed him. He said he had become a person he no longer recognized. He got irritated by small things, had stopped reading because he could no longer concentrate. When his children visited and told him about their lives, he would find his mind wandering, unable to follow the conversation. Anthony wasn't getting stupid. Anthony was experiencing firsthand the effects of a brain deprived of social stimulation. His cognitive flexibility was deteriorating. And the worst part was he noticed it. He saw himself changing, and he didn't know how to stop. He believed it was a one-way street. And for a long time, science thought the same. It was believed that the adult brain was fixed, that after a certain age we could only lose neurons, never gain new ones. But this has been proven completely false. Our brain has an extraordinary ability called neuroplasticity. It's the ability to reorganize itself, to form new connections, and even to create new neurons. The damage, at least in part, can be reversed. The brain can recover. And this discovery completely changes the rules of the game. What's fascinating is that one of the things that most stimulates neuroplasticity is precisely social interaction. The damage caused by loneliness can be, in part, reversed by its antidote, connection. The conclusion that Axiom revealed with this data changes everything we thought about aging. The decline we associate with old age is not an inevitable sentence. It is, in large part, the result of how we live. And there is concrete proof of this. There are places in the world where people age in a completely different way, where reaching 90, 100 years old, with a clear mind and with energy, is the norm. These places are known as the blue zones. There are 5 regions scattered across the globe: Okinawa in Japan, Sardinia in Italy, Icaria in Greece, the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica, and a community in Loma Linda, California. Totally different cultures, climates, and diets. But when researchers analyzed what they had in common, one pattern stood out above all others. In none of these communities do people grow old alone. In Okinawa, for example, they have a concept called a moai, groups of friends who form in childhood and commit to taking care of each other for their entire lives. An Okinawan is never truly alone. He has his moai. In Sardinia, families live together, or very close by. Grandparents look after grandchildren, and children look after their parents. It's not seen as a burden, but as the natural flow of life. The pattern is clear. Social connection is woven into the fabric of their daily lives. It's not something they have to seek out. It's the default. But the researchers found something else, something perhaps even more important than social connection. In all the blue zones, people have a reason to get out of bed in the morning. In Okinawa, they call it ikigai. In Costa Rica, plan de vida. The translation isn't perfect, but it means purpose. The reason why you exist. And we're not talking about grand missions to save the world. An Okinawan's ikigai might be taking care of his garden, teaching karate to the village children, or cooking for his family on Sunday. What matters is not the size of the purpose, but the fact of having one. To quantify the impact of purpose, we asked Axiom to cross-reference data from thousands of longevity studies. The result was mathematical. Having a clear purpose can add up to 7 years to your life expectancy. 7 years. Not just living longer, but living better. People with purpose have less depression, better cognitive function, and more resilience. Purpose acts as a shield. The problem is that modern society has robbed us of many traditional sources of purpose. Work has become just a way to pay bills. Community has unraveled and family has scattered. When you retire, when the children leave, a huge void can appear, and a brain without purpose is a brain that begins to shut down. We met a woman, Isabel, who was a school principal for 30 years. Her work was her life. When she retired at 65, she thought she would love the rest. The first few months were good, but then she started to feel useless, empty. Her days became the same. She started forgetting things, confusing dates. The doctor said it was her age, but it wasn't her age, it was the absence of purpose. Isabel's daughter realized what was happening and convinced her to tutor children with learning difficulties. She started with one student, 2 hours a week. Today, 5 years later, Isabel is 73 years old and works 20 hours a week as a volunteer tutor. Her memory has improved, her energy has returned. She has reasons to get up. What happened to Isabel has a name. Her brain suffered a reduction in activity in the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for planning and goals. Without goals, that part of the brain falls asleep. Purpose woke it up. Her brain wasn't permanently damaged. It was just dormant. The blue zones show us that another way of aging is possible, and purpose can be the fuel that keeps your brain running. But how do you build that? How do you prepare for an old age that isn't a condemnation? The answer to that question isn't in the future. It's in the now. Old age is not an event that happens suddenly, it's a result. It's the consequence of thousands of small decisions you make throughout your life. Every time you canceled plans with a friend because you were tired. Every time you failed to call someone because life got in the way. Every time you chose the comfort of the sofa over the effort of maintaining a relationship. You were building your old age, brick by brick. You just didn't know it. The good news is that you still have time to change the blueprint. The bad news is that time is passing faster than you think. Building a safety net for the future takes years. Deep relationships are not manufactured in months. They are cultivated over decades. And every year that passes without cultivating them is one less year on your deadline. I'll be direct. If you are 40, you have about 30 years to build this network before old age truly arrives. 30 years sounds like a lot until you remember that the last 30 flew by. If you're 50, you have 20 left. If you're 60, you have 10. And if you're 70 or older, you're late. But late is better than never. So, where do you start? After analyzing the profiles of thousands of elderly people who aged successfully compared to those who did not, the artificial intelligence identified 3 pillars of independence that were non-negotiable. 3 areas you need to strengthen now, so you don't have to depend on anyone's goodwill in the future. The first pillar begins with your financial autonomy. I know it sounds obvious, but I'm not talking about being rich. I'm talking about not being financially dependent on your children for your basic needs. Because economic dependence creates a situation that poisons relationships. When you depend on someone to pay your bills, no matter how much that person loves you, the relationship changes. You feel indebted, they feel trapped. And love gets mixed with obligation in a way that nobody wanted, but nobody can avoid. Financial autonomy isn't selfishness, it's love. It's telling your children, I want you to visit me because you want to see me, not because you need to pay my bills. I want to free you from the burden of my survival so you can freely choose to be with me. This opens up space for the second vital need, which is to have your own network of connections. And this is more subtle but equally vital. It means having important relationships outside of your family. Friends, community, people who know you and care for you and who don't share your genetics. Why? Because family, no matter how close, has its limits. Your children have their own lives, their own problems. They cannot be your only source of social connection, even if they want to be. If they are, the pressure on them is unsustainable. Think about your life right now. If you took your family out of the equation, who would be left? Do you have real friends or just acquaintances? People who would notice if you disappeared for a week? If the answer is no one or only my family, then you have work to do. And that work starts today. And finally, the most difficult of all, emotional sufficiency. This means not needing constant validation from others to feel good about yourself. It means being able to be alone without feeling lonely. It's having a relationship with yourself that is enough to sustain you in the moments when no one else can be there. Because those moments will come. No matter how great your network of friends is, no matter how solid your finances are, there will be nights when you can't sleep and there will be no one to call. Mornings when the house will be empty and the silence will be heavy. And if you can't stand your own company, those moments will be hell. Emotional sufficiency isn't about not needing anyone. It's about not desperately needing someone at every moment. This is built by cultivating interests you can do alone. Reading, walking, creating something with your hands. It's built by learning to enjoy your own company, not as a consolation prize, but as something valuable in itself. These pillars build a strong life, but they lead us to face what we fear most, the end of that life. We need to look at what we fear most. Everything we've talked about so far, loneliness, abandonment, a deteriorating mind, it all scares us for a single reason. We are afraid of dying. The fear of growing old alone is not a fear of loneliness, it's a fear of dying alone. The fear that no one will take care of you is not a fear of abandonment, it's a fear of dying abandoned. Death is underneath it all. It's the monster in the basement we pretend doesn't exist. And as long as we don't look at it, it will continue to control our lives from the shadows. The Stoic philosophers 2,000 years ago had a practice for this. They called it memento mori. Remember that you will die. They reminded themselves of this every day, not to become depressed but to become free. Because when you truly accept that your time is limited, something changes. The small fights lose their meaning. The pride that stops you from asking for forgiveness dissolves. The fear that paralyzes you weakens. To understand what really matters at the end when time runs out, we fed Axiom a different kind of data. Thousands of palliative care records and testimonies from people in their final days of life. We asked the system to find the patterns, the regrets that were most repeated, and the analysis revealed 5 themes that appeared with overwhelming frequency. The first and biggest regret was the wish to have had the courage to live a life true to oneself, not the life others expected of you. On their deathbed, what people regret most are not the mistakes they made, but the life they didn't dare to live for fear of what others would think. The second was the wish not to have worked so hard. Decades spent sacrificing time with family, with friends, with themselves, to accumulate money that, in the end, was useless. Because at the end of your life, you don't take the car or the house or the job titles. You take the memories. And if your memories are of an empty office at 10 at night, that's what you have. Then came the wish to have had the courage to express their feelings. All the I love yous that were left unsaid, all the apologies that were not made, all the truths that were silenced to keep the peace. In the end, these unspoken words weigh more than anything else. The fourth regret was about having kept in touch with friends. The relationships we let die out of laziness, pride, or lack of time. The people who could have been by your side at the end, but who disappeared because you didn't keep them close. And the fifth, the wish to have allowed themselves to be happier. People who spent their whole lives postponing happiness. When I retire, I'll be happy. When the kids grow up, I'll be happy. And that day never came. These regrets don't appear out of nowhere. They are built day after day. Every day you spend living according to others' expectations, working more than you should, silencing what you feel, neglecting your friends, and postponing happiness. You are building the weight you will carry at the end. The question I asked you at the beginning of this script is still in the air. Who will take care of you when you can no longer take care of yourself? But now I hope you understand that the question was wrong. It's not about finding someone to take care of you. It's about building a life where that question stops scaring you. Because if you build the 3 pillars, your financial autonomy, your network of connections, and your ability to be with yourself, then the question changes. It's no longer, who will take care of me? It becomes, how do I want to live the years I have left? And that is a much better question, a question that gives you back the power. I don't know how many years you have left, no one does, but I know that every day that passes is one day less. And what you do with these days will determine how your story ends. You can continue as you are, waiting for the phone to ring, risking living the same 11 days of silence as Anthony. Or you can start today to ensure that your phone rings because people want to hear from you, not because they need to rescue you. Build something that doesn't depend on anyone, something that is yours. If you liked this investigation, subscribing to the channel helps us expand the Axiom investigation project. We would love to read your thoughts on the video's subject in the comments and your suggestion for the next topic to be covered. Tell us which city you are watching from. Thank you for staying with us until the end.